All right, guys. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 471 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. This is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family, trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way according to God's design. My name is Seth Hensley. I come on the show twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I try to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of those goals. And today, man, I have a treat. Guys, this is going to be the craziest love story you have ever seen. So, Dr. Dan Allender is a professor of counseling psychology. I'm going to read you his bio in a minute. He's been interviewed in a lot of movies that I've watched, a lot of documentaries. He's worked with, I believe, Exodus Cry and a lot of their anti-human trafficking documentaries, as well as The Heart of Man, which is a documentary about human sexuality. And he's an awesome therapist that is a Christian who gives a lot of really, really good. Just it's really the story of his life is the transformative and redemptive power of the gospel and how it can completely turn your life around. Especially coming out of just insanely crazy and dark places. Like, this guy has had a crazy life. Now, I'm not gonna play this entire interview that you're gonna listen to today partially with me. If you want to hear the whole interview, it's on Pints with Aquinas. It was just recently published, but basically, well, I've quoted this guy before. He's one of the guys that has said famously that I haven't heard a lot of Christian people say, that the the verse that talks about a man leaving his father and mother and cleaving to his wife and the two becoming one flesh does not refer to a primarily geographical separation, but it being an emotional transfer of priority from parents to spouse, which is a take that I have not heard very many Christians make at all. But that's one of the things that I've liked most about what he said. Now, he said a lot of things that I think are really good and that are really transformative. I mean, obviously, he's worked in therapy for years with people who are coming out of very dark situations, and the story of how the resurrection of Jesus transformed this guy's life in the midst of a crazy, like, I'm gonna go into his life story in a second. It's wild, but he starts off. I'll tell you just part of it. Basically, he starts off at the age of 4, losing both of his parents in a car accident. At least he loses his mom in the car accident. I think she's like instantly killed. Very, very sad. And the dad, I think, passes away in the hospital. So he is now orphaned, and instead of being taken in by extended family or close friends, I think he's taken home by two strangers, two older women, who immediately give him what he describes as a ham sandwich, which is something that he's never been allowed to eat because his father was Jewish. And so just in this one day, his life is transformed completely. And he's starting, like, even through simple things like what he's eating now, to realize my life is completely blown apart. And the people who should have shown up for me did not. And the people who should not have had to show up for me did. And he just grows up really feeling, I forget the exact words that he uses to describe his young childhood, but he just basically grows up very traumatized and begins coping with unhealthy things. I think initially it was alcohol, and then he began to, I mean, as young as like 13, 14, I think he began to drink alcohol as a way of handling his whatever the feeling was. I don't know if he was just trying to drown his sorrows, kind of, and I don't know if he was just trying to self-medicate. You can listen to the full interview for him, but basically he starts selling alcohol. And somebody one day tells him, hey, you could make a lot more money selling weed. Okay, and you can see where this is going. So he starts selling drugs. I think he said he sold everything except for heroin, because he said something about, like, he did at least know that was really bad even back then when he was kind of off the rocker. But really fascinating story. But basically he meets his wife while he's doing these incredibly destructive things. Okay, so here's a man who has a lot of trauma. Okay, grew up Jewish, is not a believer yet. He's heard the gospel, but he has not accepted the gospel. It's not. It has in no way. He has not allowed it to transform him. Okay, but he is doing this active lifestyle of selling drugs. Goes down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I think that's where I'm going to start. And then kind of go into the Bonnie and Clyde romance that him and his wife have going. Literally, like, you will not believe how crazy this story is that he's going to tell you, and I'm going to commentate on it throughout. And then at the end, I'm just going to read you the bio of that the Allender Center has published on this man, and you can notice the incredible change that has been wrought by the cross, the resurrection, and marriage in this guy's life. those things have really transformed him. And so I just want to, I'm going to play his story now, and he's going to talk about, he's just finished wrapping up his discussion on his teenage drug addiction and drug selling. And now he's going to talk about meeting Becky, his wife. And then we're going to move into his, what he says about shame and contempt in marriage and how that can tear apart your marriage. But first, let's go ahead and hear what he has to say about his life story and how he met his wife while he was a drug dealer.
Kind of the event of meeting my wife. Let me share from that. So I'm 19 years of age. I've just done a drug deal in Fort Lauderdale. It's spring break. People from where I lived used to go to Fort Lauderdale. So
still do that, I think.
I finished a drug deal, made about $10,000, walked out of a condo, and I'm walking away thinking, if I get about a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I don't get busted, I'm good. I get out on the beach, and I see this beautiful young woman walk by. And you know those moments where you go, I know her, I think I know her. So I started following her, and I stopped and said, Becky. It happened to be a girl that I knew from high school. And so we started talking, had a nice conversation, and I said, do you want to be with some of our friends, some people you know, some from college? We're down half mile or so from here. She came, we stayed together. This was a girl that I fell in love with in 10th grade. She sat one
high school sweethearts
over 3 seats back in French class. I used to drop my pencil surreptitiously, thinking that she wouldn't notice. Just stare at her legs. Beautiful legs. So all of a sudden I'm out there, and other friends are starting to move in on her. So it's 6 o'clock at this point. We're in the hotel room. We've got pizzas, and a friend of mine's making a move on her. And I'm like, I'm going to kill you, because I wanted to be with this girl for a long, long time.
Yeah.
What do you do? If I beat this guy up, I don't think it's going to impress this woman. So I just said to her, I don't know why I said to it, would you like to take a trip to Pluto? And she's like, yes, I would. So she got 2 ice buckets. She got a blanket. She got straws so that we'd have a breathing apparatus. And we went out to the beach, and I flew her. I was using psilocybin, a hallucinogenic. She was straight. And I flew her to Pluto and back over 3 hours.
Oh, my word.
Forgive me. She knew you were referring to drugs?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we had a lovely time.
Okay, so stop. All right, so already you're seeing what a dangerous situation this is romantically, starting off your relationship. I mean, this is the kind of situation that I think anybody with some wisdom and common sense and foresight would run a million miles, an hour away from. Number one, she's met this guy on spring break in Fort Lauderdale on the beach, and his friends are hitting her up, not in the sense that they would like to enter any kind of romantic committed relationship with her, but they're basically trying to get her in bed with them for the night is what I'm picking up from this conversation. I don't know if anybody else is thinking that, but so you have all these guys who are hitting on her not to become their wife, but to become their fornication partner for very temporary companionship. It's not anything that would last. So there's what's happening. And then she's offered drugs by one of these guys and accepts. Okay, so this is not a relationship that is gonna, I would say, produce the fruit of, obviously we don't even need to go into that. But the point is, she said yes to this guy. So either and this is gonna kind of get into the redemption component that we have coming down the pike at the end of the story. It's there were a million red flags that this woman had not to date this guy, not to get in any way close to this guy. He was a very dangerous man on so many levels. It gets more dangerous, and she still ends up dating him. And to see the transformative power at the end that you're going to see, it's just a crazy story. So listen to the rest of the story here. I won't interrupt him anymore.
Give me her number. I lost it.
He loses her number.
So 6 days later, I'm flying back.
From Pluto?
Yeah, now from Fort Lauderdale to Ohio. And I've got about $9,500 in my bag.
From a drug deal.
And I gave the bag to, this is ancient, where you just literally would hand the bag over to somebody and say, I'm going to Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
They would take it. I went in, gave the ticket. They looked at it and said, this is a one-way ticket here, kid. Now, I had very long hair. I looked very disreputable. And he basically was like, screw you, kid. So I had
Dang.
$5 to my name.
Lost his
in my
10K.
pocket. They wouldn't give me my bag back.
Why?
Well, because I looked bad.
Okay.
And they wanted to screw me.
Okay.
And so all of a sudden, I'm in a bind. Like, how am I going to get back to Ohio with $5? I did what any middle-class drug dealer would do. I called my mom. And she said, maybe for the first time ever, anything like this, she said, you got yourself into this. You get yourself out.
Dang.
Hung up on me.
What a,
So
oh
I
my
had-
gosh, what an absolute mom move there. So she's not going to enable this lifestyle. That's honestly, seriously, that's the wake up call that I think some people need, is just being told, I'm actually not going to help you out of this situation that you've created for yourself. And the consequences of the situation you've created yourself are hopefully going to be the only lesson that is able to reach you in the dark hole you have crawled into and provide you, hopefully, with the realization that, hey, not only do I need to live different, but this is not going anywhere good if I continue down this road. So shout out to his mom there.
$5. And all of a sudden I remembered Becky was staying at the Beach Blank Hotel. Beach Blank Hotel. Well, there are hundreds of Beach Blank hotels. So I got $5 worth of dimes.
Too bad you lost your
and started
number.
calling. It's a Becky Gilbert registered.
Wow.
About 70, 80 cents, I realized, now I'm hallucinating, that it may not be under her name. So I started saying, 4 girls from Ohio.
Sheesh.
You can hear the line. How do I know where the girls are from? Now I'm down to about $2.50.
Wow.
And all of a sudden it dawned on me. I got to ask something else. And I said, they're driving a white Toyota. The line is, what do you want me to do? Go out and look in the driveway or in the parking lot?
Oh my God.
So I'm down to now maybe $1 left. And the guy goes, no, Becky Gilbert, I don't know where the girls are from. I'm not going to go look in the park. And he goes, wait a minute. A white Toyota is leaving right now.
Whoa.
And I said, I beg of you, go stop the car. They went out. Becky came in. And obviously, or
Jeez.
maybe it's not obvious, Becky's my wife.
Yeah.
So we're in now a new relationship. I'm driving.
Okay,
over-
that should never have worked statistically. So there's you already that's just a shot in the dark of something that should never have happened being used by Providence. You're gonna see how God works all things together for the good of those who love Him and who are called according to His purpose here. I mean, this guy's life. I mean, it's really bad right now. It's bad. But if you hang on for just a little bit longer, there's like a crazy middle of the sandwich, and then the end, the bun on the end is where things just you would never see it coming. Let's continue really quick.
girls back to Ohio. We get to a small gas station, and I walked in, pay for the gas. I didn't have any money, and
And just to clarify, at this point, he has all 4 girls with him now. So they've picked him up, and he's taking all of them back to Ohio, which, if I'm not mistaken, he was originally from. So this is kind of the Ohio. You're going to see how this couple is kind of the Ohio Bonnie and Clyde love story that gets redeemed in the end through the resurrection and the power of just the gospel and everything. But so he's taking these 4 girls, this dangerous guy. I mean, he's a dangerous guy. He's taking these and something you're not going to hear him say in this interview is that his drug dealing was getting dangerous because the Cleveland Mafia was starting to take over his territory, his drug dealing territory. So basically he describes, I don't really know how all this works, but he describes it in detail in the interview. He was dealing drugs kind of just at a street level, and his business was getting taken by the Cleveland Mafia, who was professionally packaging the drugs into a lot smaller, parcels so that they were easier to smuggle and transport and stuff and sell and everything. It was just a better way of, doing this illicit activity. So he's getting some heavy competition from the Cleveland Mafia, and they basically didn't want that competition. So he is at this time in his life, or very soon, afraid for his life. He's afraid for his life. Okay, because he's competing with the Cleveland Mafia as a drug dealer. So And by the way, I think he said he was making hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this, and he was like 17 years old. Okay, so this is a really young kid. Okay, and you can already just basically with that knowledge infer that a lot of this started out because of that absence of parents, and instead of having family and friends to care for him, he had random people step in and just the unhealthy coping mechanisms that he developed to handle his trauma in early childhood just kind of led him to this point. And at 17 years old, here he is, fighting. I mean, he doesn't necessarily say that they were trying to kill him, but he says, that he didn't feel comfortable because he didn't know if there was a contract out for him, is the words that I think he used, because obviously they don't want competition for the drug selling. They want to be the only provider. And so here he is at 17 driving 4 girls home. Let's and these girls are ignoring some red flags. So it's not like they're just some unlucky, crew who he has deceived into getting in cahoots with him. These are some girls that are either very foolhardy currently or don't have a lot of wisdom, or are so won over by the bad boy complex that they are willing to ignore a host of red flags. So basically, I'm not saying the girls are at fault. I'm just saying this is a time bomb situation. It's very dangerous. His life is in danger. He's not a responsible guy. Listen to what happens in this gas station on the way back to Ohio. He, at this point in his life, now he's a great guy. That's part of the redemption thing. Like, it's coming. Like, you would not think the amount of redemption possible in this man's life would be possible. Like, this is the story. This is the power of the gospel. But so anyway, he's on the way driving them back to Ohio. Listen, and he stops at a gas station.
Some of the employees there see this hippie-looking kid and start pushing me. I'm not fond of being pushed. Certainly not them.
Nobody is. But.
So I hit one of them. And a little scuffle occurred. And already I'm outnumbered. I run. The cash register.
So basically this just got even more dangerous for the girls. So not only are they being taken home by a drug dealer who is probably not on friendly terms with the Cleveland Mafia, and he's dealing drugs, and he's given some of them drugs, and they're forming alliances with this guy, but now he's in a fight, and he's bringing the assailants to the car where they are. So now they're involved in an actual violent altercation. Okay, and it gets worse. Listen to what he does on his way out of the gas station.
Registers open. If I'm already in trouble, I need money, so I grabbed a bunch of 20s and ran.
He robbed the gas station, dude. He robs the gas station, and then listen, he goes and gets back in the car with the girls. And then listen what happens next.
They come after me. Us in the car. Shooting shotguns.
Okay. Whoa, hang on. Were you running or were you in the car with the...
Did you hear that? So he's on it. The drug dealer is taking these 4 girls back to Ohio. This drug dealer is not on friendly terms with the Cleveland Mafia and has now assaulted an entire gas station of people and robbed the store. And they are now in pursuit of his escape vehicle with the 4 girls in it, shooting the vehicle. They are blasting the vehicle with shotguns on the highway. Okay, this is where it's starting to sound like Bonnie and Clyde. Okay, this is the Ohio Bonnie and Clyde. You would never think this love story between Becky and Dan Allender here would go anywhere. You would think this story ends with somebody dead. This story ends with a baby out of wedlock. The story ends with heartbreak. The story ends with infidelity. The story ends any number of places, an overdose. But you would never think this story ends the way that the gospel makes it possible. And I'm getting to the end where you kind of see and I'm going to show you kind of, when I read his bio at the end and what he's doing now, you're not going to believe the power of the hope that you should have. Like, even in the darkest place, redemption is always possible.
4 girls at this point.
I ran to the car, got in the car, and we drove off. They followed, shooting.
They being the people who are pushing you, not the owners of the establishment.
Well,
Maybe a bit of
the
both.
people
All right.
owning it.
All right.
So, again,
Somebody's shooting him.
I'm trying to get to is, like, my wife, I mean, we're just a matter of about 6 months from 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
My wife had enough data. The fact she chose to be in a relationship with me.
It's her
It's
fault.
crazy.
I will say she had enough data to know
Yeah.
you better run.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
back to the shotguns.
Well, if they were really sincere, they would have killed us.
Okay.
But I think they just wanted to see if they could get us to stop. I mean, they were not that bad of shots.
What were the girls doing in the car?
Freaking out.
I mean,
What were you
hello.
doing?
Oh, look, a Datsun is not exactly one of the power cars to be able to run away from. So I just know if they want to stop us and kill us, they can do that. But I think they just let us go.
Sheesh.
So
Okay, so that
You've
right
got-
there was the 8th miracle so far, at least in this guy's life. Okay, the fact that he's not, overdosed, gotten killed by the Cleveland Mafia, gotten shot by the owner of the gas station whose establishment he robbed. There have been so many miracles. The fact that he was even able to find Becky, his love interest at this time, when he only had $5 to his name and he was stranded across the country, is just miraculous. Okay, it's just absolutely miraculous. So all this is happening, and it culminates. We're almost to the end of the story. Listen.
a marriage built on this is a woman who's drawn to danger,
Yeah.
drawn
Which is
to
that's
oddity,
yeah.
drawn to a man who'd basically say, do you want to take a trip to Pluto?
Yeah. Ooh.
Sounds more interesting than being hit on by a man I don't know eating pizza in a hotel room.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
So yeah, every marriage, like every friendship, is this strange array, whether we know it or not, of this trajectory toward redemption.
Wow.
But for me,
Every marriage is a strange array of a trajectory towards redemption. Like, what a line. I mean, I just feel like, okay, so let's fast forward. I'm going to just kind of summarize the next, 30 minutes of this podcast for you. I haven't finished the entire thing myself. I'm probably halfway through, but basically what happens after this is he's still not a believer at this point. 5 years go by after they make it back to Cleveland, and that, I think, is where the Cleveland Mafia maybe starts to encroach into his territory a little bit, and his life gets a lot more dangerous, and he's actually afraid for his life, and his friends are telling him that you should be afraid for your life. And he has one friend who's been friends with, I think, since he was like 13 in high school or something, or in middle school. I don't know. Let's see here. Yeah. Early school. And that friend has been pushing him to accept Jesus Christ and to kind of turn his life around for a very long time. And he's just kind of blown him off. And he even says, I think in this interview, that he wasn't unfamiliar with the Christian faith. He could do a lot of, Christian lingo and kind of engage in the language with a lot of people who were believers, but he didn't, it wasn't something that he actually bought into or accepted or acknowledged as might have any reality, might have any realism to it in any way. And anyway, one day he finds himself, I can't remember how, but he finds himself in a church, and it's a humorous story. I think it was a Presbyterian church or something about the minister there looked like a crow because he was wearing so many dark robes, and he gets up and he starts talking about Balaam's donkey, but he's using the other word, the A word that the King James probably uses. And I guess Dan Allender at the time wasn't aware that was referring to a donkey. So when when the presbyter was talking about Balaam's talking donkey, but he was using the other word, he was just extremely, he was very confused as to why not everybody in the church was laughing. And anyway, he says that was one of the most memorable sermons of his life, and he realized in that moment, well, first of all, he thought they were all high, I think is kind of where it was going. He thought they were all like hallucinating or something. And then that was when he first started to, basically at the end of that sermon, he realizes that if God can use Balaam's donkey to speak, then clearly even he is capable of being a benefit to the kingdom of God, is basically where he goes. Okay. So that's when he first realized that maybe there is kind of some sort of redemptive hope for me, is what he got out of that sermon. And then he starts to meet people in the Jesus Revolution in the 70s who were, kind of a turnoff to him, because he said they were, I believe in the interview, he said they were like so happy that he thought it was fake, and that there couldn't be any real grounded substance or realism to them because of how happy they were, and they didn't do drugs, so it wasn't that. So basically, he was just talking about he didn't like the Jesus Revolution hippies. Okay, But so that's all going on. Eventually, he accepts Christ not out of being intellectually convinced that the resurrection was real and that Jesus was who he said he was, but instead out of fear for his own life and dread and desperation of some way to find hope beyond what he thought his impending death was going to be, because he thinks he's going to be killed any day by the mafia, the Cleveland mafia. So he accepts Christ in an act of desperation, is how I think he describes it, in an act of trying to basically protect himself from, it's just a self-preservation thing is kind of how he described it. And so he says the prayer, and he even starts leading other people to the Lord. It's hysterical. Creating converts and leading them through the Romans 10 thing, confessing with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believing in your heart God has raised him from the dead, and you will be saved, kind of leading them through that. And then they're like, wow, I didn't know you were a Christian, Dan. And he goes, yeah, well, I'm not sure that I am either. It's just, I'm so glad to see some hope on your face, because he talks about leading a woman who was suicidal out of the darkness with the Romans 10 sinner's prayer, and just completely turning her life around. And he wasn't even fully convinced at that point. He was just kind of a believer out of desperation, is kind of what I'm getting from his story. Again, go listen to his story to make sure I'm not getting any of the details wrong. I'm trying to do it all from memory here, but I'm trying to do it quickly because he takes a long time to tell, and we don't have time to do that whole thing on my podcast. But anyway, he ends up fully being intellectually convinced later through seminary, because he is trying to clean his life up. And I think, again, out of fear of being killed, because he's getting really scared for his life, goes to seminary because it's the only college that will accept him without him taking an SAT or the equivalent of an SAT or ACT that was done back then. I don't know what the exact test was, but he had never done that. Obviously, he was a 17-year-old drug dealer making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. He had no plans of taking an SAT or an ACT. So he didn't have it, and because he didn't have it, I don't know why he didn't take it. Maybe he was afraid he couldn't pass. But anyway, he ends up going to seminary because they'll accept, undergraduates who have not taken that. And his friend tells him that, and his friend's like, "Well, are you going to go to like seminary, like a theological school?" And he was like, "No, I don't want to go do that." And the guy was like, "Okay, well, you need to, if you want to go to school, that's kind of your only option, because you're going to either have to pass the test, or you're going to have to get a scholarship, or you're going to have to." And I don't know why he needed a scholarship at that point if he was so rich, but that was some minor detail in the story I didn't get. But anyway, the guy, he says, just think about God for a year and then decide whether or not you want to go to seminary, or basically do the test and go to a secular university, a liberal arts school or whatever. So he thinks about God for a year and decides, and that's actually, he starts kind of digging into it a little bit, and that's when he becomes intellectually convinced that the resurrection is actually a pivotal point in the history of humanity, and that the person, that Jesus Christ being raised from the dead, was not only proof of his Godhead, but kind of proof that, hey, the way I've been living my life is not it. There is something wrong. If somebody has that much, if that much of a 180, that much of a transformative power from death to life is possible, then my life can be changed for the better. And so he accepts the gospel. He believes in Jesus Christ. He accepts him as his Lord and Savior, and then he goes on to marry Becky. I haven't got to how they got married at that point in the story, but the point is, so she's had her own redemptive journey leading up to this point. Okay, so imagine they go from Bonnie and Clyde, Ohio, druggies and sellers and assaulters and fugitives and being like hunted, to now both having their own redemptive life story coming to the cross. And then they get married, okay? And listen to where they are now. Before we get into his marriage advice, which I'll show you in just a second. This is his bio. This is the guy, Dr. Dan Allender. He's the founder and lead instructor of the Allender Center at the Seattle School. It doesn't say what school, just at the Seattle School. Dr. Dan Allender is a pioneer and of a unique and innovative approach to trauma and abuse therapy. For over 40 years, the Allender theory has brought healing and transformation to hundreds of thousands of lives by bridging the story of the gospel and the stories of trauma and abuse that mark so many. Listen to that, guys. So this guy goes from a drug-dealing fugitive who is, his life is endangered from so many levels, to bringing healing and transformation through the power of the gospel to hundreds of thousands of people. Okay, and I was one of the people that found him on the internet through the Heart of Man documentary he did, which is basically a documentary on the healthy sexuality according to biblical ethics, and not the sexuality of the world, and basically just describing the difficulties of living in the world today with being. It's just a very complicated documentary. I won't go into it, but also the Exodus Cry documentary on human trafficking. He worked with them, and he says after receiving his Master of Science in Counseling from Barry University and his Master of Divinity from Westminster Theological Seminary, Dan earned his PhD in Counseling Psychology from Michigan State. Dan previously served on faculty at Biblical Counseling Department of Grace Theological Seminary and Colorado Christian University. In 1997, Dan and a cadre of others founded the Seattle School of Theology and Psychology in order to train therapists, pastors, artists, and leaders, and more effectively serve in the context of the 21st century. So now he not only was counseling people from horribly traumatic situations, hundreds of thousands of them, but he has now created a university, a Seattle School of Theology and Psychology for the training of people to go and do the same, which is the discipleship component of this. So now, it's just like Jesus discipled the 12, and then they went on to disciple more people, and then the grassroots movement of the early church spread. This is exactly what he's doing. This is the multiplication of the early church, the exponential multiplication. So he's doing that. Then in 2011, the Allender Center was founded by him and his wife, alongside Kathleen Lorzel, with the support of the school they had founded, and to cultivate healing and train leaders and mental health professionals and courageously engage in stories of harm. So he's founded 2 schools, basically, that are training pastors and therapists, and what was the other one? Theologians or something. I can't remember. He's got all the degrees. He's a theologian. He's a psychologist. He's a counselor. So basically, he's training Christian theologians and counselors and people who are doing a lot of ministry today. And how he started, and he specializes in sexual abuse recovery, trauma and abuse, marriage, intimacy, and love and forgiveness. So just an amazing story, guys. And the whole point of this episode has been what is possible through the redemptive power of, and I didn't even get to the part where marriage plays in his transformation, in his maturity as a follower of Jesus. We really only talked about the power of the resurrection and what the resurrection made him realize was possible in his own situation of just death, and the power of that 180, that complete transformative turnaround from going downhill to just flying in a moment. What that did for him. And I do want to see before we wrap up here what he talks about shame and contempt, the role that he says shame and contempt can play in harming your marriage here. Let's go skip to that point at the end of the video, and that after he says that, we'll wrap up.
Comes, the dish rack has not been wrung out. And I'm like, are you kidding? Are you serious? This would be what you want to remark on?
Nothing else first?
And then what she said at some point was,
This is his wife.
I honor all that you have given. But is it asking more for you to be aware that when you get distracted, everything changes? And I do have what generally is called hyperfocus ADD. So when I'm on, I'm on. But when I'm not on, I'm off. And she said, toward the end of when you were about to complete, you started thinking about something else. And I'm like, I guess it's good to be known. Yeah, I started thinking about a project that I was doing. And all of a sudden, the cleaning changed. And she said, I don't really care about the dish rack. It's, why won't you stay present in doing what you were doing with such kindness and honor? And yet, why won't you stay till the very end? And she said, it's also when we're ending an evening with friends, because you feel a certain degree of grief whenever we end anything.
Okay, so let's pause right here on what I want to highlight here is the guy goes from, again, I'm highlighting the transformative journey here. So he goes from drug addicted, drug selling, hunted, fugitive 17-year-old to not only somebody who has ministered and probably, let's be real here, he's probably saved hundreds and hundreds of Christian marriages, or at least helped. You know, I'm not going to give him full credit, obviously, but he's been a partner with God, a co-laborer with God in the redemption of hundreds of failing marriages here. Okay, and he goes, so he's not only done that, but listen to the perception that his wife has of his innermost thoughts and workings here. And again, he's been married 50 years, I think is what he said, 50 years, about 50 years. My point is, it's a long time. Not only have they been married a long time, which in itself is kind of a miracle and a success, but they seem to be in a relationship where she knows him very well, which is a goal that every marriage should have. You want to know your partner super well, and you want to be able to minister and serve your partner in visceral and real ways that nobody else can by that point in a marriage. At 50 years in, I mean, you're going to want to have that, level of insight, access, just influence, all that stuff. And it sounds like, listen to the perception of that question. She basically sees him leave a party early one day and says, hey, you're leaving everything early because you don't want anything that's good in our life to end right now. And he goes on to talk about how she was able to help him walk out of that and stuff, and that realization that she had there. But so not only is he a success when it comes to discipleship and outreach and ministering to his neighbor, which are and expanding the kingdom of God, which is the New Testament virtues of followers of Jesus Christ, but his marriage is in, I mean, there's a lot of miraculous thing happening in it as well. And again, not that anybody's perfect, but Timothy, Paul's letters to Timothy talk about overseers and being, there are requirements of them, and one of those requirements is being the husband of one wife and having a good, unimpeachable reputation in like every virtue possible. And so whenever I see people who are in positions of influence and authority in the church today, it just warms my heart to see them also have good marriages, And so not only has he done a lot of great things for the kingdom of God as far as outreach and ministry go and service to his neighbor, like all the neighbors that he has in the world, but he's showing the fruits of the Spirit in his marriage as well. Okay, and he came so far. Like you would never expect somebody who grew up the way he did to come to this place in either marriage or ministry or service or vocation or outreach or anything, but just the power that the resurrection story can have. And like Christians just need to be obsessed with the resurrection story of from death to life and having completely nothing to having everything. That's such a powerful and the power that's possible there. Like, because if this really happened, then, and it's happened for so many other people, then it's definitely possible for you. Beautiful story. I hope you guys have enjoyed this story. Go listen to the full story on Pints with Aquinas. Again, it's the Dan Allender interview with Matt Fradd on Pints with Aquinas. Just search that in YouTube, spelled like it sounds, and it'll come up for you there. And just a beautiful story. I mean, awesome story that has really just warmed my heart, and I just wanted to share it with you guys of redemption. Redemption is completely possible. Redemption is possible. So let that be your takeaway from the episode today. Thank you. Give me your favorite comment or your favorite thing that happened as a comment in the YouTube comments. Would love to hear your thoughts about this Ohio Bonnie and Clyde turned minister for the gospel in the YouTube comments. Let me know what your favorite part was, and then or you can send me a message on social media through the Restoring Rapport Facebook or Instagram page. Would love to hear from you there. It would make me feel super connected to you guys as audience members, and it would make the podcasting system two ways. Thank you so much for listening today. God bless you guys, and I will talk to you all next time.